everybody, Steve Politi here at NJ Advanced Media Studios for the, episode 5 of the Rutgers? 6 episode. Wow, the season just flies by. Episode 6 of the second season of the Rebuilding Rutgers podcast, joined, as always, by weary beat writers Keith Sargent and Ryan Dunleavy. I think the bye week...
Starved.
Starved. The bye week has come at the right time for Rutgers, and it's come at the right time for the two of you. You look terrible, both of you. I just wanted to let you know. It's just like the season is really just...
There's no video on this podcast, right? It's only audio.
Right. The season is clearly wearing on you. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about last week's game. I don't think there's much to say. Ohio State... 56-0 victory. It was 56-58. 58 last year. 56 this year. Next year, 54. We're going to get down to the 40s by to 2020. I think. At that
best tweet I saw was, I believe, was his friend. I think it was Todd Cohen, who's a friend of Sarge's eyes, and he said last year Rutgers lost 58-0 at Ohio State. This year it's 56-0 in Piscataway. Vegas is right. Home field is worth 2 points.
that is a great line. Yes, I wish I had thought I owned myself. I don't know what to say about it. They're just a lot better. And if you're trying to find any positive, it was 7-0 in the first quarter. Rutgers was driving. They had a chance. Just an interception. Ohio State goes right down the field. Yeah. A couple of Rutgers safeties gets injured. Ball game. It was over. It was over then.
Yeah, literally, the second safety Hester got hurt.
Yeah.
They put in a wide receiver who was practicing at wide receiver on Tuesday when I was at practice at cornerback at safety. Great. Urban Meyer saw it, called timeout, said, "Here's what we're doing. Next play, touchdown."
Right. It didn't take much coaching genius to identify that kid as a weakness. I don't know. It just seems like we've talked about this. This is the product of losing 30 scholarship players over a course of a couple of years.
Correct.
There's nobody. There's no backups.
Yeah, that's it. They don't have. We went into the year talking about how they have Big Ten talent at a lot of starting positions, and then you look at beyond that, and it's a long season. Injuries happen in college football. It impacts depth, and when you look at the depth, part of the reasons why is they lost 70% of two full recruiting classes, 2013 and 2014, between player defections and between players
transfers,
getting booted,
dismissals,
arrests.
And those recruiting classes weren't exactly...
those guys would be starting right now.
Yeah, but they weren't exactly highly touted recruiting classes.
No, but, let's call it what it is. Nobody wants to mention his name because he was mugging for cameras in court, but Dre Boggs would be...
Right.
Him and Bless Austin together would be a really nice...
Yep.
And
that's what's happened. We talk about how they can catch up to Ohio State. Well, they got to catch up to.
It's going to take recruiting, and
exactly.
Chris Ashton says all the time, it's probably going to take 3 or 4 recruiting classes.
It's a long, and that's 3 or 4 good ones with no misses.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so let's get right to the first segments. The bye week. I thought we'd do a little Festivus in October here. The team's 1-4. Let's just recap in general terms of just what to you the biggest disappointment is in this. Sarge, you want to go first? What's the one thing that sticks out that you look at, you're like,
Yeah, probably the passing attack. I looked at it today, and they're a year ago. I think they ranked 122 out of 128. The teams below them were all option running teams, and this year I think they're at 119. Improvement. 3 spots.
We're moving on up. Gee.
With a grad transfer, and it's the second year in a row they brought in a grad transfer, and he just hasn't really been any great shakes. No offense to Kyle Bolin. He's been a leader, dealing with the media after games. It's just, the results aren't there. They're averaging 140 passing yards per game. I know there's a lot of issues why the offensive line has not been great. Now they're banged up at the offensive line. Mm-hmm. Ryan could talk about that. Jonah Jackson, he as he wrote today, he's going to be out for 4 weeks. Jonah Jackson is playing between center and right guard. Was one of the better offensive linemen. That's going to impact depth going forward. But any way you look at it, the passing attack just has not been good.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say the offense as a whole, not to pin it on Jerry Kill per se, but just the offensive staff, the offensive personnel, the offensive play calling, the offensive game plans as a whole, just conservative. But Sarge kind of just touched on that. and I know what your answer is. Teaser. So I'm going to say the pass rush. I don't have it in front of me. How many sacks does Rutgers have? 3?
Yeah.
Three, I think.
I think it's yeah.
Kamoko got his first. Darnell Davis has 1. I mean, there's no pass rush. The other quarterbacks have all day to pass, and that was fine when Bless Austin, Saquon Hampton, Kai Hester was your secondary. It's not fine with Zane Campbell, Rashad Blunt, Edwin Lopez. If you don't know the names that I'm mentioning, that's the point. So Zane Campbell's a nice story, but he was at Wesley College 2 years ago. Where's Wesley College? Anybody? It's in Delaware.
Venture a guess.
But that's the point. So, yes, the pass rush needs to be much better. The line play as a whole, both sides need to be much better. Chris Ash has said 1,000,000 times Big Ten football games are won in the trenches, and Rutgers is losing games in the trenches on both sides of the ball.
All right, you teased at me, and I've just been going through this, and I actually, a friend of the podcast, Rob Helfcott, also mentioned this to me, and we were discussing it.
Craig Helfcott or Rob?
Rob, his father, Rob.
Oh,
the whole Helfcott family is big on the podcast, and they better listen to it.
Nice.
And it just boggles my mind that this program does not have one good wide receiver. I don't understand how it's possible. And this is what I was thinking about it. Like I understand like why there's not more 6'5", 340-pound defensive linemen who can run a 4.74. There's only so many human beings like that on earth.
Yeah.
How did they get to the point where they don't have good wide receivers? And to that, this is a program that's developed so many of them. And I thought coming in that they would be better with Mitchell. They would be better with Bo Melton. They'd be better, that Grant would come back for his senior year, and none of these guys have stepped up in any way. To have 0 wide receiver catches against Ohio State is incredible. And I think you have to look at coaching in a little bit on there too. Sure. Are they not developing these guys? I get it. All right, the level of talent in the program's down, but now you've had a few of these guys for a second year now. Why are they not getting better at that position? I mean, they're not going to be able to compete in the Big Ten until you have playmakers, and they don't have any.
I remember talking to Chris Ash about it a year ago about it, and I know they've gone away a little bit from the power spread offense that was all the rage. But part of the reason why they wanted to go with this offense is because you can really look out your window and be able to recruit wide receiver talent in New Jersey. New Jersey produce a lot of wide receivers. Pennsylvania as well.
Right.
This is an area where you can get good wide receiver talent. You might not be able to get a great offensive line and defensive linemen in any given year, but most years you can get wide receivers, which is the reason why they wanted to. One of the reasons why they wanted to go with this offense. And to your point, they're just maybe they're young, maybe, but it just seems like an excuse almost every year.
And it's the whole reason why programs like Washington State run the system they do, because they know they can't get the bigger players, but they can reliably get receivers that Rutgers doesn't have.
2 things. One, for whatever reason, you remember weird things in your life, right? I remember watching the Rutgers-Louisville game one year on ESPN, and they did this whole graphic of Rutgers wide receivers, and it was like Tim Wright and Mark Harrison and Sanu and all these guys. It was like, wow, they had like a stable of these guys. And like that's what you're supposed to do, right? Like Penn State calls themselves Linebacker U, and they go and recruit linebackers on, look, you could be the next LeVar Arrington, so. I don't understand why Rutgers hasn't been able to say, look, you could be Leonte Carroo, Mohamed Sanu, blah, blah, blah. And you look, and Blacknall's at Penn State, and Kelvin Harmon's at North Carolina State, I think, and these guys are making impacts otherwise. And the name you didn't mention, and this is killing Rutgers, is Jawan Harris, who is one of the 5 best athletes on this campus, is a total non-factor this season. I mean, he was all Big Ten freshman by ESPN last year. 32 catches, big plays, a 70-yard touchdown against New Mexico. I know the last game against Ohio State, the ball might have been tipped before it got to him, but it hit him in the hands, and it was an interception. He was the target on the killer interception against Eastern Michigan. He is a non-factor, and that is killing. He's, to me, you don't want to pick on any one kid, but he's a witness protection at this point.
You're right. All right, let's move it forward now. We've got a bye week here. Chris Ash says everything's on the table. All right, so that's good. So let's put it all on the table. I mean, what is the one thing you need to see in these final 7 games for you to feel, all right, well, at least it's that at least the train has turned itself around a little bit.
Yeah, I'll go with freshman, and I'll save Jonathan Lewis to one of you guys. I mean, obviously he's going to play a lot more, but again, I keep on harping on it every week. Raheem Blackshear, probably need to see him more, and then at linebacker, their linebacker play. They look slow. I don't want to single out any one of the three players, but they are not Big Ten.
Deontay
caliber.
Roberts looks okay. Looks okay.
Okay. Well, that leaves Trevor Morris, and he was,
and the others.
Yeah, and he was behind trailing on a lot of plays against Ohio State. Maybe it was one.
He's
game.
their leading tackler, but they're 7 yards down.
But they
tackles.
can do a lot better, and they have. That's an area where they do have a lot of freshmen waiting in the wings. I want to see some of those guys.
I want to see a win. I mean,
Yeah,
what was the question everybody was asking me in the press box Saturday? Rye, how long's the Big Ten losing streak? Yeah. How about let's stop asking that? Right now it's 16. Is it going to be 17? Is it going to be 18? Our sergeant are going to be looking up the longest Big Ten losing streaks in conference history. Like, get that over with. I mean, as much as a must-win game for a 1-4 team can have, call it a must-win game. I mean, they need to win a game. That's the number one thing I want to see is win a game.
You can't go into your second off season as a coach with 3 victories, 2 of them against MEAC teams and 1 of them against New Mexico.
I mean,
that's what it would be.
I mean,
that was what it would be. I agree with you. I want to see a win, but I will take the quarterback because I think if they don't get that win, and there's a strong possibility. I wrote after the game, they are staring 1-11 in the face. They'll be a touchdown underdog at Illinois, a bad Illinois team. I need to see at least that they have some hope that they have the most important position on the field. Yeah. And that's why, I want to see as much of Jonathan Lewis as possible because the other guys, to me, are not going to be part of that future.
To me, here's the number that is mind-blowing to me. I saw it just this past other day. You're going to see me write it. Every story I write for the next 10 days. Illinois, who's not very good, is starting 10 true freshmen.
Wow.
10. I don't know if that's because they're good players or because Lovey's has bad upperclassmen or he just said, screw it, I'm handing it over to you guys. Yeah. But just do that. Like, even if Tyshawn Fogg's not as good as Trevor Morris, put him in the game. Even if Bo Melton's not as good as Jay Housh, put him in the game. Like, that seems to be what from afar, like what Lovey Smith is doing. And at least that, if you're an Illinois fan, you're like, well, we're starting 10 true freshmen. They might not be any good, but we're starting 10 true freshmen. Maybe Rutgers should try that.
Right.
Well, I mean, a couple things that we do know. 2018 is going to be a pivotal year 3 for Chris Ash. 2, that you need to figure out this quarterback situation. So that probably means Jonathan Lewis. You need to go into
Didn't you say that on our podcast in 2009? You need to figure out this quarterback.
But you need to go
the first podcast in 1869. They're debating if we don't get
Leggett looks good as a running. William Leggett.
I have seen the Princeton defense and the way they were pressing against the receivers. If we don't get a quarterback,
we need to get in 1870 uprights.
The point is. The 2 arguments I keep on hearing is, well, if Jonathan Lewis isn't the guy that we find out over the last 7 games that he's not really as good as advertised, then they could get a grad transfer. Well, we've seen now those guys.
There's a reason they're available.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then 2, we saw this week they have a player renege on a commitment from California.
Yep.
So. Just the idea that the next guy, the flavor of the week, the next freshman coming in to save the day, it needs to be Jonathan Lewis. Unless you go back to Gio Riccio, who actually does have a year of eligibility remaining. But you need to figure out one way or the other who the quarterback is going to be for 2018.
Right. Chris Ash has said that many times, too, is that he needs a quarterback or everything else he's doing is superfluous, basically.
All right, we're going to cover that in true or false here in a minute. Let's go through this. You know the format. I'm going to ask you, make a statement. You say true or false, and then we go back and talk about it at the end. All right, number 1, if Rutgers loses its last 7 games, it's fair to blame injuries now. True or false?
False.
False.
Chris Ash is right. Every coach would have tried that field goal down 56-0.
True.
True.
Wow. Okay. Illinois will be favored by more than a touchdown next week.
True.
True.
Kyle Bolin should start against Illinois.
True.
True.
Wow. All right. Jonathan Lewis should start against Illinois.
False.
All right. I'm going to answer my own true here, but that just so we have a different answer. Gio Ricino should start against Illinois.
In that case, I didn't know that was a question. I'm going to revert on my true against Kyle Bolin. False to Kyle Bolin, true to Gio Ricino.
All right. So we each took one quarterback. That's good. We can discuss that.
It's the same thing we did in the preseason. Literally.
Absolutely.
The same
Except
thing.
we've all changed players. Chris Ash should get more involved in the offensive game plan. True or false?
True.
False.
Yeah. Losing the quarterback recruit from California this week is a harbinger of bad things to come.
False.
Rutgers' best hope to beat Illinois is Robert Martin.
False.
Oh, true, 100 times true. We'll talk about that first. I just think they need to run the ball. I think he's the best running back. I at this point, just ride the horse. He's got at least the most talented offensive player on the team at this point. So,
to me, their best hope is to win 6-3. Like that. To me, that's their. Honestly, you said their best hope. Their best hope is to win. I think you put it perfectly in your preseason predictions. A rock fight. 6-3, 9-6. That's their best hope. Andrew Hart is their best hope.
All right. So now, you really think they should start Gio, or are you just saying that to have fun at the podcast?
No, both.
The kid hasn't played at all. I mean,
he's played a little
bit. But
no, I mean, listen. How did Gio become the starting quarterback last year? He was imitating Illinois' starting quarterback on the scout team, and they're like, he's got something. Let's play him.
Right.
I realized that was a different team that had Tyler Oden, not Jonathan Lewis, and Chris Laviano, not Kyle Bolin. But to me, I mean, I haven't, other than their names, I haven't seen a whole lot of differences between those guys so far and what they have this year. To me, if this is the offense, this is as simple as it is to me. If this is the offense, and what was the offense against Ohio State? A bunch of read option plays, read option handoffs, pass run options. If this is the offense, Gio Ricino is the best one to do it because he can actually run, unlike Kyle Bolin, and he can actually pass, unlike what we've seen so far from Jonathan Lewis. So to me, if this change the offense, make it more run heavy, then stay with Kyle Bolin.
Right.
But if you're going to run a lot of read option, Gio Ricino is your best option.
You can make a strong case that a year ago, Chris Ash waited at least 2 games too long to change quarterbacks.
I agree.
You can make that case. You could have made it last year, and then looking back on it, definitely could have made that case. Everyone knew what Chris Laviano was. I understood, that okay, well, maybe you won the job in training camp. You want to give him a couple of games or whatever, but he was, worse, and he wasn't great in 2015, but he was even worse. So you could really make that case that they waited too long. So to your point, I'm not changing my pick. I still think it's Kyle Bolin, but you make a good point.
This is why I went with why I think it should be Jonathan Lewis, because we still don't know. You saw him against Morgan State. He has 5 touchdowns. That doesn't tell you what he is. Saw him against Ohio State. He struggled. That doesn't tell you what he is. You just got to identify it. I don't think I've seen enough of Kyle Bolin to know that he's a limited player. If he's not going to make the easy throws, if he's not going to make accurate plays, they are doing the read out. They're running. They're trying to run the ball. And that was the play that my head exploded when they needed the 4th down. That didn't matter, but they send their passing statue quarterback on a running play. It's like, well, if you're going to do that, put in Jonathan Lewis. So I don't know. I mean, at this point, why not just give the kid the keys and see what happens?
That's the one thing I disagree with. Like, I agreed with everything you said to the last thing you said, and that's the popular thing on Twitter from Rutgers fans is, why not do it? Because they need to win the game. Because, I want to see Jonathan Lewis. I want to see the future. But I can see it after Purdue and Illinois and be just as satisfied with seeing it. You need to win the game. I hate when coaches say, we're going to play the player that gives us the best chance to win the game, blah, blah, blah. That's true this week. I mean, I can't say it enough. You need to beat Illinois. Whichever quarterback gives you the chance to beat Illinois, it's not about the future this week. It's about the present.
Okay,
well,
fair.
What do we think? Who's the best of the 3? Who's the best quarterback? Life on the line, best quarterback. I think it's Jonathan Lewis, most talented. Maybe it comes down to a development. Give him a game plan. Give him something that will work. I mean, Maryland. You said it last week. Maryland had was its 3rd string quarterback, and they won
on the road.
On the road.
And the guy threw for like 250.
I know.
So
That's
who's
crazy.
the best quarterback on this roster?
Right. All right. So the one thing I do want to touch on.
No answer.
I don't know.
The 56-0 field goal thing. And I know you both, and I think you're probably right. that most coaches would have attempted that. I think now that what happened here should put end to another thought that anyone should ever do it again, because it was really the saddest thing I've ever seen in the football field. And I mean that I want to climb underneath the table in the press. It was just the way it hit the upright thunk, and then the celebration and the
celebration
for the Ohio State fans. I mean,
the Ohio State fans
it was
chanting.
50,
missed that kick.
I know. Okay, it was 56-3. It was not worth it. 56-0.
And I went down to the sideline for the last 5 minutes to focus on Graciano, and I watched it. I didn't even watch the ball. I heard it doink, but I didn't watch it doink because I was focusing on Graciano. Right. And he let out like a literal laugh. As I said on the video after the game, it was a literal laugher.
He guffawed,
about like the proverbial laugher. He literally laughed out loud when the ball, and rightfully so. He got a shutout.
Right, so sad. All right, well, good. That's a good transition because I want to talk about Greg Schiano. I think your story, the departure, is the best thing we've written this year on the Rutgers beat. It was just a fascinating tale about what happened in those final 24 hours with so many nuggets. Two things struck me. The first, of course, is like how bitter these. Now they're men now. They're not kids. They're still so much bitterness. Kasim Green, these great play. Gary Nova. These kids who were on that team at the time who saw this happen are still angry. Number one, and then number two, I just love the fact that that Robert Barchi, if you're looking for reasons why Rutgers is where it is in the Big Ten, the idea that they had a cap at what they would pay a coach at $1.4 million when they were paying a coach more than $2 million.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, they're trying to save money at this point. It's incredible.
To both of your points, and I agree with you that it was like a truth serum that they, 6 or 7 years after the fact. Because I talked to Gary Nova in the parking lot after, and he said the company line and said wasn't all that bitter. Clearly, he had an opinion on it. And Kasim Green, we talked to him literally right after Greg Schiano left, and he said all the right things. But so it is amazing that you get away from the program, you become smarter, wiser, and they were certainly a lot more eloquent in what they their opinion. Two, as far as $1.4 million, and I had heard that at the time we knew that Mario Cristobal was offered. I believe he was offered 1.2. He turned it down and he asked for more money, and then Pernetti actually got it up to 1.4. So the 1.4 number, it was actually 1.2 where they wanted to be at. It's just, again, why is Rutgers in the position that they're in? Because go back to 2013, Mike Rice, decide whether or not you suspend him or fire him. If they fire him in December 2012, and you do the right thing and not worry about, they owe Mike Rice all this money and the litigation, and we have to hire a new coach. If they do the right thing then they're probably not even in this position. They're always looking at – they're short-sighted from the standpoint that if you need the right football coach, it impacts so much, not only on the football program but on the athletics department as a whole. Go get the right football coach.
Absolutely. And this is – we had a question from Joe Woost on the Twitter. What should have been the move at that time? And I guess, was it Cristobal? What if they had the money, what would they have done?
It's hard to say because he is on the hot seat, but and asking around, talking to different people, I think Butch Jones was the guy who and again, you're talking about revisionist history, but at the time, he had done a pretty good job following up Brian Kelly at Cincinnati. He had spent time at Rutgers as a GA. He knew what Rutgers was all about. He was a pretty big name. He would have been a bigger name than Cristobal, certainly bigger than Kyle Flood. Dazio, had rubbed high school coaches the wrong way. Butch Jones is probably the guy who you'd be looking at the next tier.
Mm-hmm. Two things to add to that, and that was actually informative to me. I didn't even know that. Two things. I love weird full circle coincidences. It's just something I like. So Butch Jones replaced Greg Schiano as a GA at Rutgers in '90. He could have replaced him at Rutgers, and now Greg Schiano's probably going to replace Butch Jones in Tennessee. So that's wacky.
The world has just gone, just keeps on going. You really think that's the job he's going to get?
I really do. I think that's the.
It does feel a little square peg round the hole to me. I understand he recruits well in Florida, and Tennessee's only going to win when it gets Florida, but that to me, I think they want a flashy, sexy, big, sexy hire down there.
And then something else is Sarge mentioning, the Pernetti, Mike Rice, how they save money there. What's interesting to me is maybe if Pernetti had fired him, what's the right thing to do? I think probably the right thing to do in 2012 was to hire Kyle Flood. I know that's not a popular opinion in hindsight. I think that's probably was the right thing to do because that's who the seniors wanted, and that senior class was maybe the best Rutgers has ever had, and they should have had as much influence as they had. But the right thing to do was to fire Kyle Flood after the 2013 season, and they didn't have the athletic director with enough power to do that.
Right. And again, what are we talking then? That buyout was what? $600,000.
Yeah, $750. I think.
That's the turning point. To me, it's not hiring Kyle Flood; it's keeping Kyle.
Yes.
So we're talking now about $3 million could have avoided the three biggest mistakes in Rutgers history.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got a lot of mail.
Oh, hold on. I have a Twitter question.
Yeah, I have a bunch of them.
Is Schiano well, this is Schiano.
Oh, okay.
Is Schiano coming back at the end of this year a possibility? If there is to be a reunion, it seems like it's now or never.
No.
No.
Schiano is never coming back.
Well, no. See, I don't know if I agree with that.
Never.
He is not coming back this year because the job's not going to be open.
Right.
Chris Ash is the football coach at Rutgers for this year, next year, maybe the year after, probably. Could I see Greg Schiano coming back as athletic director of Rutgers in 2030? I could probably see that. Come home, retirement job. I could see that. I'm not going to rule that out.
Man, maybe.
Yeah, I can see.
His next coaching job is his last coaching job. Do we agree?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So he goes there for 6 years. Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't. And then he's looking for a retirement gig. I could see it.
Fascinating. All right, so we got a bunch of mail from people, a bunch of tweets, a bunch of questions. BK Hawk, Bronc Knight, a friend of the podcast, wants to know, any chance Amir Mitchell is back next game? How many snaps should the three quarterbacks get versus Illinois? And how do you help the wide receivers get separation? Start with Mitchell. That's a great point. As we're talking about the biggest disappointment for me is that kid's been out.
I think there's probably, I don't know if I want to say 50-50, but probably about a 50-50 chance. He's made significant progress. He all training camp he wasn't wearing a brace and he looked good running. Now he is wearing a brace in practice, which to me is a sign that he's coming. It's not that he's regressing. It's a sign that he's doing actual football activity and needs a knee brace. I think there's a chance with the extra 2 weeks. I think there's a chance that he is worked slowly back into the.
Would he make a difference? Would he make it?
I don't know. He's never played a college football game, right?
So how do we know?
Sure, he was a 4-star recruit and he went to Michigan and blah 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 blah. But he's never played a football game. Would it make a difference? It can't make it any worse.
I mean, you don't want to compare him to his brother, but I mean, Damon Mitchell, and this is probably the reason why we sometimes overhype in the preseason, right? I mean, Damon Mitchell had 13 catches at Arkansas over 4 years, and has not lived up to. He was a pretty good player in the spring, pretty good in training camp. It just has been. You talked about Juwan Harris being in witness protection. So is Damon Mitchell.
Invincible.
All right, so with the schedule getting a little bit more manageable, question from Jonathan Malave, with the exception of Michigan and Penn State, do you think we just start playing young guys for experience? I think we should have been there already, but is this going to happen now? Are we just going to start throwing these kids out?
But I don't think you could say with the exception of Michigan and Penn State, you can't play them against the average teams, and then when you play a good team, you go back to the veterans. No, just play them.
Right. I think you got to win this Illinois game. And going back to your original point, what you need to see, you need to see a Big Ten win. And now if they lose to Illinois and then Nebraska, then that's where
you mean Illinois and Purdue.
Oh yeah, Illinois and Purdue. That's where you say, okay, you be a realist and realize that you're going to have to play for 2018, but you have to beat Illinois. You have to. It has to be the bowl game.
It's the bowl game. All right, and from the biggest friend of the podcast, Ayaz, our Twitter. Yeah. How do you pronounce it? I don't even know.
Azaz? I don't know. I have no
idea. Great guy, though.
He's a great guy.
Phenomenal. Great opinion.
Send the pronunciation over Twitter for us. Why is Lewis not getting more first-team reps in practice this week? Is stealing one more win more important than long-term growth? We've talked about it a little bit. They need to end that big game winning streak.
I think it is.
Losing streak. But I tell you, I think would Rutgers fans not, if this kid's good, if he throws 3 interceptions but also passes for 250 yards and they lose 27-21, are you going to be like –
what were we talking about? I think the fans will be optimistic, but I think the recruits,
and that's
what really matters. With all due respect to the fans, because the fans aren't going to be happy if the recruits aren't happy in the end. So the fans can get all jazzed if they lose 27-21, but he looks good. But if the recruits aren't happy, if James Franklin and Jim Harbaugh and Campanelli and Adazio can go in and say, look, do you really want to go to this school that's lost 22 Big Ten games in a row? It really doesn't matter. I mean, yes, to me, I'm sorry. Yes, it does matter. So
you sound a lot like James Franklin there.
Good
James Franklin.
I do
Good
have
job,
James
Franklin.
All right, the final segment is, well, we have one mean tweet, and then we also have the Big Ten fan base that we didn't piss off this week. Did not. It's a twist on this, and here's the song. It starts with some drums.
It's amazing how many of these songs I don't
It sounds like our
recognize.
podcast intro.
It does sound like it. Yeah. Do we steal the Ohio State fight song for the podcast intro?
Oh, you just gave it away.
Now.
When does it start? Here it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
I recognize.
Of course you know this song.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great
I
song.
think we heard this quite a bit when Rutgers
Yes.
played them.
Oh, it's in your head when you get out of there. So an interesting story that Ryan did on the football helmet stickers. That, of course, the Buckeye thing. They think this is their big deal, but no, Rutgers invented the football helmet sticker.
I had a really good time doing it. I love Sarge and I both love talking to old-time Rutgers football players. I like history. So, long story short, it goes back to 1960 at Rutgers. As a way to give honor interceptions, Rutgers put huge stars on helmets as a sticker. And I wrote it, and I was thinking while I wrote it, I'm going to write it. I knew I was going to write it for a couple weeks. I'm going to write it Ohio State week because it's relevant, timely, and it'll piss off Ohio State fans, right? I mean, look, Rutgers is claiming this thing that is part of your identity, and I didn't hear – I mean, it was crickets. Crickets from Ohio State. Hashtag Buckeyes. All the usual tricks.
I love it. And this is great because I've noticed this over 3 years too. That, Penn State fans, Rutgers, I can't believe they're in our conference as if they founded it or something.
Yeah.
Michigan fans, same way.
Yeah.
Ohio State fans do not care. It's
even
just,
Indiana, you had the thing with the Indiana fans who cared about Rutgers. Ohio State, and to me, it's this simple. They've been there before. They have 8 national titles. They don't take helmet stickers if you want them. We win games. We're not worried about Rutgers. You're something, and you're like you're out of my radar. I worry about Michigan being there before. And to me, Penn State and Michigan fans, they don't. They have. Maybe it's their inferiority complex to Ohio State. Maybe it's Penn State thinking Rutgers might one day be a problem for them. I don't know what it is, but you can rile those fan bases up easy. Ohio State, leave me alone.
And I loved that the press conference after this game. I went into the Ohio State, and the Ohio State has more media here than Rutgers has media at this game. Yeah. And they're in there, and the questions were all like, Urban, what do you get out of a game like this? I mean, every one of them. What are we even doing here? Like, when does the plane go? Where are we? Are we in New Jersey? What is this?
I mean, the thing is, they're like, J.T. Barrett's got to be benched. He's not any good. But J.T. Barrett is all-time leader in touchdown passes.
If J.T. Barrett was at Rutgers and had the numbers that he
was at 95% of the schools.
He walked into the press conference. He could start at linebacker tomorrow for Rutgers. The kid is enormous.
By the way, you misspoke. You said that Ohio State had more media than Rutgers fans, actually. I think Ohio State media actually had more than Rutgers fans at the game.
They do take it seriously. All right, I'm going to end with one mean tweet. Another good friend of the podcast. We've now mentioned all 6 listeners. Kevin Fine directed at Dunleavy.
Always.
Why hasn't Dunleavy watched The Godfather? I like Ryan, but this hinders his credibility.
Great
Hashtag
question.
mean tweet.
Great question.
And then this is only one of the top. This is only one of there's like 7 or 8 great movies that.
Yeah, I probably haven't seen any of the 7 or 8.
And we're going to do this later on this year. I promise you. To keep the 8 of you listening, we're going to each reveal one embarrassing fact about ourselves, just as a teaser. So you have to listen to the whole thing. We're going to sneak it in. And this is one that Ryan can't even use now, but it's true. The man has not seen any movies, any great movies. It is
really bad.
Embarrassing.
I mean, you'll do a reference in the press box.
Yeah, you know that scene in Caddyshack, and Ryan's like, no, I didn't see Caddyshack.
No,
I've never seen it.
So, Nurse Meg, who I'm surprised you haven't mentioned her.
A friend of the podcast. Another friend of the podcast.
I don't think she pointed out that section 219 or in the upper deck ran out of coffee, ran out of hot chocolate. It was a cold night, and so she's.
Which, by the way, they can't do. I mean, we can do another podcast. That can't happen.
But it brought to mind as soon as I saw that she's on Twitter, complaining about it. The airplane scene, the great airplane from Airplane 2.
Of course,
never seen it.
That they're running through, and are you being straight with us? And then she said, "Oh, well, even though we're about to die in a fiery crash, we're out of coffee," and that's what made everyone explode. Is a great scene.
Great scene.
Ryan had no
Never
idea.
seen
About
Not
it.
seen it.
Never seen it.
Just disgraceful.
No.
All right,
Rocky, never seen it.
Here's what you do. Here's what you got to do in the bye week. See some movies. All right. We'll leave it on that note. Thanks for listening. Again, bye week. We'll be back next week. We're going to do one next week?
Yeah, in Illinois.
Okay. To preview the Illinois game.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.